All right. So if you can make it, make it. This is going to be part of our next assignment. So we're starting off with a piece of Illustrator artwork. So this will be our first time where we actually can create something that's more customized versus just flips and whatever else. You have the ability to draw your own artwork, but you have to draw this and get it approved to use inside your stuff, okay? So if you are not good at Illustrator, don't even attempt it. Focus on the animation. Focus on the techniques of why you're specifically in this class. If you are comfortable with Illustrator and you want to explore this and you want to have something unique, feel free. Explore in Illustrator, create something. What I want to show is how this is set up so that you can create this, a similar template to yours, okay? Because we can't just draw stuff in Illustrator and bring it right in, we have to have our layers and stuff set up correctly. So the biggest thing is anything that is a separately moving item inside of After Effects will be a separate layer inside of Illustrator, okay? So the boat is on a separate layer because the boat is going to move separately than the map will move. The little dotted line is going to be drawn inside of After Effects, so again, on a separate layer. The waves, I'm going to move differently, so those are on a separate layer. The islands are not going to move. They're basically just going to be stuck there. Those things will be in one spot on the same background basically as the background color here. The treasure chest in this case doesn't move, so it's all on one layer with the islands actually. Okay, so you can see all those things are on one layer. There's my boat, there's the waves, there's the path, there's my map icon, and then here's my letter X, which will pop in afterwards. Now, breaking that down even further, you could have animations on top of each one of those things if you wanted to. So on this boat, I could animate each one of these little sails kind of rippling a little bit. If I want to do that, guess what has to be on a separate layer? Everything, right? So the more stuff you want to animate, the more layers you have to have. So keeping yourself organized is going to be essential. So you can't have layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just in your mind you know it's the flags. You have to make sure that you label it flag 1 or sail 1, sail 2, sail 3, however you want to do it. Now, you know a little bit about stuff that we can do in After Effects, obviously not the full extent of it. If I had all of these on one layer inside of Illustrator, when I go to After Effects, they're all going to animate as one layer, okay? So again, something I may want to think about. Now, if I have something that I'm going to duplicate a setup, so let's say that I'm going to create one flag, and that one flag is going to move, and I'm cool with using that same instance and duplicating it around. I don't need to make all of them that I'm just going to duplicate later. I can just make one here and then duplicate that later. If I'm going to do 50 boats, I can model one boat and then duplicate it in After Effects later, okay? Same thing with the waves. In here, I have a bunch of waves because they're different shapes, but I'll show how we can delete the waves out and then bring them separately in and whatever. Eventually, too, I think this was, I'm trying to remember where I saw this. I think it was the Jumanji end credits, I think, that they had basically just like maps like this, and they had like 3D like clouds floating on top of it too, so you were actually like inside the map, and I thought that was cool. So we'll try to incorporate some of that stuff too inside here, so not only are we working with a 3D map that will unfold and then animate on top of it, but we'll also work with other elements that are kind of moving around on top of that, like in a third dimension that way too. Cool. So just a couple things to keep in mind while you're drawing in Illustrator. If you haven't had Illustrator in a while, obviously some things to consider. So basic shapes, if you can use them, use them. There's nothing wrong with just using a basic shape. The only thing you want to be aware of is stuff like the width tool. Having a consistently solid line going around your entire item is pretty boring. Having some sort of width to your lines definitely helps make it appear more interesting. So this is the width tool right here, and the way it works is you click on your item and you use the width tool and you can make the width thicker or thinner in certain areas. Okay, so that will help add a little bit of dimension to the stuff that you're doing. You could also, if I don't hide my stuff, where's my menu bar up there? I don't know why I jumped onto that screen. There we go. I lost my menu bar. Windows, stroke. Oop. I thought it'd be a good idea to hook up the other screen, but so far, no. There we go. You can choose from different profiles too. So if you're doing something like, that, you can just pick from this list. Or the one that I drew, actually turns out that it shows up in that list. So as you draw them, it'll actually create a new profile for that specific item, which is, again, awesome. So you want to vary your stroke weight on things. Even these islands, you can see that the stroke weight is varied on them. Right. Also remember, you can, oops, which software am I in? Yeah, it was Alt. There we go. You can take your stuff, you can use your, not that tool, it's under here, your shape builder tool, and you could actually cut things out and make separate shapes using the shape builder. So the way it works is they're overlapping, and then you can just like cut stuff out. So instead of me trying to draw that shape, it was actually a bit easier to just create some other shapes. Grab them all, go to the shape builder, and then you're simply just clicking on what you want your shape. I want this shape here, boom, and then I can just deselect and then delete the rest of it. Okay, so very quickly you can create some basic things without even getting into the pen tool much. Cool, that was pretty much it. If you do have a stroke on there like this, that stroke, even with the profile, will come into After Effects with that profile too, so it does remember that. If you decide that you aren't sure about something, make a separate layer for it and just keep it as a blank layer. Like let's say that I may want to put a sea creature in the middle of this, I would make a layer called sea creature and just leave that layer blank. If my sea creature is going to animate, and I will show you a couple examples, again, moving that over there. Nope, that's a semester. That's nothing. Upload. Map. If your sea creature has different parts, again, you'd want to animate those things as different parts. You could really get into like a whole bunch of stuff depending on how complicated you want to get. If you continue in After Effects and you go to the next class, which is 2250 or 2570, the 2250 is all about animating an entire character. So not only is typically the forearm and the bicep are two separate pieces, but you may also have a shoulder as a separate piece. You may have each finger as a separate piece, depending on how complicated you want to get there. Why isn't that working? Whatever, I'll just find it in here. 3D, oh, now it's working. Also, I showed, I think before with the Angry Bird one, how different facial poses would also be a separate one. So every blink that you would have is a separate blink. Every smile, every different mouth expression is a separate drawn image that you would also bring in. So we're doing ours a bit differently than this one. We're changing it up a bit. Okay, so you can see that the waves move differently. Now he's also gone into, instead of drawing in Illustrator, he went into Photoshop and drew a lot of the stuff inside Photoshop. So that is also a possibility. You would still do the same kind of thing, making sure that everything's on a separate layer. What else do I have? I believe this is the default one. Yeah, so that one's mine. So you can see the waves are moving. And it goes back. And apparently that's all I have. It can't be all I have. There's Elizabeth. There we go. Sweet. So she drew that extra stuff. I know where the other ones are. On here, under 1900. There we go. Too far. There you go. So she wanted the treasure chest open, so also she has that treasure chest there. Okay, so the more detail you add to this, the more reference you use, like an actual map, those kinds of things help, having legends, having, this doesn't really do anything as far as purposefully, but visually it looks nice to have that on top of the map. Okay, so other things that you could add to that. When you create your document, you want this document to be the same size as what we're going to be using inside of After Effects. I really should have not had this set up today. And there it is. Now scooch it over. Okay, so our animations are all 960 by 540. So any documents we create, 960 by 540. Okay, if we created them at a weird resolution, that weird resolution would come in. Okay, so we want 960 by 540. And then anything that's, come on, Control Shift D. Hide transparency grid. Control Shift D. That's what I hit. Or Shift Control D. Maybe that was it. No? Same thing. Don't go off the artboard. Stick onto the artboard with your stuff. Eventually we'll get into drawing outside the artboard, but for right now just focus on right there because it'll just make your life a lot easier because our map isn't going to extend past that. It's just going to just be in that area. So then draw your stuff, make new layers. These are layers. If I start creating stuff like that, like this, even though I can expand this and these things are here, those are not layers. Those are just parts of a layer. Those are just stuff that's under it. Even if I took all these and I grouped them, that's still not a layer. It has to be on an actual layer. Some things like the background color you can definitely customize inside of After Effects, so you're not stuck to that. Any of the colors really you can customize inside of After Effects. Oops. Okay. So just consider that if you do want to use your own artwork, draw it ahead of time. Don't wait until the assignment comes out. So if you get done with the other 3D stuff today, then you can start drawing this, or you can draw it over the weekend or whatever, okay? But don't expect to be able to do the assignment and draw the stuff and get it all in on time, right? Cool. Any questions on that stuff yet? No? Okay, yeah, nothing really to go.